Hello, everybody. I'm James McClinsey. My dad was James McClinsey, and this is my eulogy. Um, the day of my dad's wake, I couldn't hold it together enough to get my thoughts out. But I didn't want to not eulogize my dad, so I'm immortalizing it in video. Um, and I'm doing it all in one fell swoop. I'm not going to do any editing or anything like that. It's only fair. It's just what I would have had if I had been up there at the podium like my brother was. He eulogized my father beautifully with a very well written, well spoken, and well delivered eulogy. Um, so here I am with the same shirt I was wearing, and I'm going to explain why the background is as it is. And that's because my dad uh, was a huge Elvis fan, and this is the Jungle Room in Graceland. So I thought, how appropriate. I'll put that in there. So as a professional orator who couldn't get it together enough, here we go. I have just so much to say. My dad was so generous with his time, his money, his advice, his wisdom, which I didn't always appreciate. It's just a part of the human condition, and he cared about us kids so much. He always stood up for us. I remember him standing up for me. There was a gym teacher who called me fat when I was in uh, junior high. My father caught wind of that, and well, that was the end of that. He had that teacher up against the wall with his finger in his chest, telling him exactly how it was, and that's colored a lot of how I deal with stuff at the school with my own son. Um, my dad was just so creative. He used to love to draw. I remember I would tell him about something, a car or a house or something. He would just start sketching it out, just little, tiny little sketches, and then he'd trace over them a little bit, kind of like inking in comic books, just trace over them. Um, And even though he didn't think he was smart, he was incredibly smart. I mean, when he went to college over at Orange County Community College, when the teacher was out, they would ask him to teach the classes. So it's just what an incredibly accomplished man. And, I look at it as, if, I was lucky to have my dad for 53 years. A lot of people don't get to be that lucky, but I was. And it's such a perspective. He was so incredibly accomplished. I feel like I'm so far behind, like I've done so little. Just as sort of an analogy or I don't know, a simile or a metaphor, I get all those mixed up. Imagine that you're outside with the sun to your back and you hold your hand out in front of you and you can see the shadow on the ground. You start walking toward that shadow. You're trying to walk toward the hand part of that shadow and you never get there. And that's kind of how it was with my dad. Always living under his shadow. He would always amaze you. It, it's just he'd always accomplish something, do something, be amazing in some way, as we anybody who knows him, you know. Um, and he was my superhero. Apart from gym teachers, there was a time, and I don't think that this has made it onto the internet. It was, pre-internet. Paper probably didn't put it in there. I haven't been able to find it, but my dad had this big Chevy Caprice station wagon that looked for all the world like a police car, and he happened to stop at a convenience store one night, and it was being robbed. So my dad got on his cell phone, which you're not supposed to do, followed the criminals, stayed on the phone with the police until the police got there, followed them, and what what a superhero. And it's pretty fitting that the last movie my dad, my brother Jason, and I saw together was Iron Man in 2008. So he's my superhero. I'm going to kind of come back to that in a minute. I got thinking how when I was a kid, as is so common with especially male children and their dads, they kind of lock horns. And I remember my mom as a kid telling me, "Well, you lock horns with them because you guys are so similar." And boy, does a young man not like to hear something like that. We're not nothing like him, blah blah blah. And obviously time gives you perspective. And, we were very similar. I mean, he's an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. We're both left-handed. We're both dyslexic. Both love cars. Um, when I was 19, I wanted a Pontiac Trans Am really bad, and I looked at a ton of them, and a lot of them were real pieces of crap. But as a young man doesn't see that, he sees every one of them as potential, and boy, I'd really like to have that car. I had saved up all this paper route and comic book money. My dad knew that, so he helped me pick out one that was really, truly just pristine, beautiful example of a Pontiac Trans Am. Um, I remember I would wake up, I would go as a teenager, I'd be working some dumb job, probably at Friendly's washing dishes till 11:30 at night, and I'd come home, go to sleep, and as a teenager, sleep in late the next day, get up, my car's gone. My dad would take the Trans Am down to the shortstop deli and hang out with his buddies and show the car off, and that was always nice. So we always had cars too. And there's an interesting story that revolves around cars and Elvis. In 2003, my mother bought my dad a brand new Volkswagen Beetle Turbo S. Um, and it just so happened that the salesman was an Elvis impersonator. So when the car was delivered, it was all Elvis songs and the guitar and uh, just a really, really nice story. We have both of those cars still, which is nice. Um, I miss them. You know, my son Michael came along. He's named after the middle name of my dad and his paternal grandfather. So he's Michael Thomas, and my son is just a newly minted teenager. Let's put it that way, and that can be tricky. And my dad was helping me to navigate those waters, and I had just started getting advice about teenagers and how to deal. And man, I wish I could get his advice now about anything. You know, even now I'm finding out that he was right about so many things. He always told me, "Oh, I'm right. You're going to see someday." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, Dad." No, he was right. He'd like to hear that. I guarantee it. He is the ultimate dad, and really kind of like a buddy. He always felt like he was. I don't know. He was just good company for whoever he was around. And as cliche as it sounds, the world really is poorer without him. Uh, I dread every single day that going to the local tire shop or wherever it is, and somebody's going to ask me if they haven't seen us in a while, how's your dad? And having to uh, having to give that news over and over again. To bring things up a little bit, I'm going to make a little bit of a joke because Dad was such an Elvis fan. Every Christmas from now on is going to be a blue, 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 blue Christmas. My dad, I'm always going to miss you, but I'll see you on the other side. And now I'm going to do my callback to the last movie we saw together, Iron Man, and just say, Dad, I love you 3000.